Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here of talking about highway driving, and looking through the rearview mirror right here. And whenever I was at work on this right here, I was also thinking too that whenever it comes to driving, though, when most of us have had our experience with highway driving and maybe driving on the back roads and even on the interstate highways and even on the country lands, anywhere where you're going to be traveling, that you'll be taking pictures, right? And let's just say if you're going to be drawing, like most graphic artists would even say too, that you're trying to look at whatever photos and maybe anything that you did want to draw, and just to kind of piece together from what you can remember, and something like during the road trip, that this is what you were trying to photo. If it's a photograph, or maybe if it is something that is related to about traveling, and also sceneries and stuff. And so a lot of times it's like, So why do you think that maybe a rare view mirror photograph may be something that you would maybe see looking through the rear view mirror? Why do you think that would be something that you would start out with, especially planning any sort of road trip, really? If you were planning on any sort of road trip, that why do you think that you would go ahead and start taking pictures, and wherever you're going to be driving, you start taking pictures of something, and then you go ahead and start by looking through a rear view mirror. And that rear view mirror, of course, is maybe going to show is toward the traffic coming right behind you, maybe on the side, or maybe going eastbound or westbound or something like that. So you're always want to know too that while you're driving, though, that that the first place, you go ahead and So while I was drawing this, I was just thinking too that that you want to go ahead and piece together some information about driving on the highway, because most of us who are going to be driving on the highway, though, that they're going to say that the things that they see on the highway, not only is the speed limit going the speed is 70 miles an hour. So so 70 miles, and something like that. Maybe not even in capitalized letters like that, but like let's just say that if we're going to be doing the typical studies right here, and knowing about miles per hour right here, and giving directions, right, and you're thinking this toward it, you go ahead, and anywhere you're going to be driving, for sure, that you go ahead and try to tell a story about something. And let's just say that you go ahead and take photographs of something, but let's just say some of those photographs might look like that they were taken looking from you're looking through the driver's side, of maybe through the rear view mirror, or maybe through the side mirror, or something like that. And you want to know too that why does the picture look like that, and like everybody else might say, is to where really that number one, that in order to be able to get a good viewpoint of the traffic, you'll come from right behind you, for sure. If you got cars coming from right behind you, and then maybe like if you're going to be on the highway, there's going to be two lanes of traffic, right? Usually there's two lanes of traffic. Like if it's west, you're going to west to east or something like that. So a lot of times, every time you do think about that, and you're always want to know too, I could have included tractors, and I could have included motorcycles, and even RVs and buses, but I got an example right here of a truck and a car right here. But like everybody else would say, that based on their experience with driving, that whenever you're going to be driving on the roads, that just think is toward it, that especially if it's going to be a late night hour, that you're warned toward it, that if you're going to be driving anywhere at like a late night hour, and especially if it's at nighttime, that a lot of times it's like, I could just remember driving on the roads those years ago, and I could just remember that if you're going to be driving somewhere and let's just say if it's late at night, and it's a lot of the lights, a lot of the traffic lights and all that you would normally see, and usually you would be able to tell if places were open if you saw the lights, on certain areas where you went, where you were going, right? And so that's why it sure seems that way, that looking at at these images, and like say you want to know too that this truck right here, but it's like you go ahead and draw a picture right there. If that right there is supposed to be like maybe a traffic stop or something like that, but like it sure seems that way, that 70 miles per hour right there, but then it's like you're warned toward it while you were driving, while you were driving, you saw a lot of places. You saw a lot of places where you would like to stop. You like to stop to eat. To go to eat there or something like that. Or some other sceneries, and so it's like sceneries. So I'm like for sceneries right here, but still it's like So whenever you're thinking about that, and want to know too that thinking about traffic, you're doing traffic lights and rest stops and other places like that where you're going to be going, and I want to know too that based on your experience, it sure seems that way, that but like with me though, that whenever you're going to be driving anywhere on the highway, for sure that the first thing that you're going to maybe notice is that places that are open, or maybe a few places that places that are open, and maybe places where you would see about what exactly is going on over there, or anywhere where there's going to be so anywhere where you're going to be driving, right? Anywhere where you're going to be driving, that you might see a lot of open land, a lot of land, and maybe a lot of places where it look like if they're opened, or maybe under construction or something like that. A lot of construction sites, and so that's why it seems like that each time we think about that, and want to know too that so you go ahead and take a picture, and let's just say that this picture right here, it looks just a little bit like if you were looking through a rear view mirror, and kind of get an idea about what the traffic is, what exactly is going on from right behind you, and so like anybody might even say that while you're going to be driving, right, while you're driving, that every now and then you're going to go and look at to see the traffic from right behind you, but it's like so a lot of anybody who's going to be a photographer might even say that you look at some of these photographs though, but some of these photographs, some of them while you were driving, especially if we're talking about anything about dynamic, any sorts of dynamic images, and like where you're actually taking photographs of moving traffic, like those vehicles, you were taking the photographs, but those photographs didn't come out real clear to where you can actually see what was going on, like a few spots that came out real blurry and out of focus. And so that's why a lot of photographers might even say that if you're trying to take a photograph of something, for sure it's going to really come out really out of focus and real so a lot of these photographs, for sure that you go ahead and take a photograph of something, and for sure that if it's going to be maybe a moving traffic. And that is why it seems like that you go ahead and draw a picture, and then you go ahead, and if anything that you would go ahead and you edit, and open, use a program like Photoshop, or some program like that, or maybe InCopy, or a PowerPoint or some program like that, just so that way you can include maybe a text and writing about explain what this is right here. And so it's like each time you think about that, and I want to know too that you look at a drawing or maybe just like a little infographic or something like that, and to where that you can have an image related of something, and want to know too that you go ahead and draw, like, do graphic work on this right here, but then right here down below here at the bottom, and you go ahead and include like maybe 4 or 5 sentences of something just to explain this picture right here. But yeah, you're going southbound and going eastbound. So really, so if you were to actually say something like that, and want to know too that have we all really, if we really even pay attention to that too much of the time about the vehicles, that whatever you do while you're going to be on the roads, though, that that line of traffic right there was going, they were going east, or they were going south, they were head southbound or something like that. So every time you're going to be on the road, though, and you're always worried to where that, do you really pay attention to what direction that is, if that's south or if that's east and if that's west right there? And even if you did, and like everybody's thinking, is to where that, well, really, that, because once you get on those roads for sure, once you get on the highway, then, you're going to think as toward, okay, you got the, at least 4 lines of traffic right here. And so it's like usually on the highways, it's 2 lanes, right? It's usually 2 lanes. But then by the time you get off the highway and actually get on to maybe if it's from the interstate and then get on the exit ramp, and if you take the back roads or maybe the Route C direction or something like that, and so if you would actually be getting on the roads for sure, that you would maybe be always wanting to know too, just a little bit, like especially if one of those roads was under construction, if there was any construction, if there was construction going on, any construction, any construction that was going on, that there will be like places of the road, there will be areas on the road that they would have blocked off, or they would have re-guide you and to where the traffic is going. And so it's like, so every time you do think about that, and you're warned to where that almost every road trip where you go on, that they're going to say is to where if you could go ahead and try to get at least 1 or 2 photographs, as long as you have somebody to hold the camera, go ahead and take 1 or 2 photographs of what's going on with the traffic, what the traffic is doing, and like everybody else would say, then go and include like, and share that maybe like on Facebook or something like that. Like people might say that while you're going to be on the roads traveling, like everybody say that even at that photograph really came out of focus, or maybe even if that photograph did you thought that it would come out a little bit more clear and crisp, like, a little bit more clear than that. You thought that maybe that the photograph would be just a little bit more visible, like what you were trying to show here, that you were trying to take the photograph at a certain angle. And let's just say that the photograph that you were able to take, looks like it was taken from looking from a side mirror or something. And so I know for sure, like everybody else will say, that while you're driving, that for sure that the camera angle, for sure, especially if you were looking from maybe from the dashboard or somewhere like that, that not everybody's really going to know what all that is really going on right there. And so that's why it seems like that you go ahead and you go ahead and find a place where you can go and place the camera, where you can go and take the picture. But let's just say that the first thing that you think about whenever you do take the picture is that they can't, that picture right there looks like it was taken looking through a rear view mirror like that. And why would you want to use it for any source of photograph? Like, let's just say if you were to talk about a road trip that you recently had, why do you think that you would want to use a photograph taken, it looked like it was taken from a rear view mirror? Why do you think that you would even want to sketch it, just to explain, what all that you saw and all that? But like everybody else would say, is toward really that the number one that when we're talking about photographs, that a lot of our phones take up a lot of space, by the way. And if you really if you really just want to kind of draw out the details, just to get an idea of what you would expect to see, and by the time you go, by the time you do actually go on that road trip, and maybe you would see just a little bit of the similar details, and maybe quite a bit is different too. But it's like, yeah, so it's like, so while you're driving, though, that you might see that, maybe a truck, and maybe, I'm like, yeah, maybe a few buses, and maybe a few tractors, and maybe, any, I'm like, yeah, a van, or maybe, I'm like, yeah, so other sorts of vehicles that you would see on the roads. And you will want to know too that quite a few of those vehicles are moving so fast to where you're not really able to get really clear, very many clear images of what they look like, and for knowing about if this driver, right, I'm like, yeah, if they're driving for business related, or if they're just out on the roads for vacation reasons or something like that, and so that's why I'm like, yeah, it's like maybe for like the car insurance advertisements or something like that. But it's like yeah. So each time you think about that, and 102 is toward it, yeah, that based on your experience with road trips, though, and your 102, that road signs. So quite a few of those road signs that you would maybe see a road sign on the intersection, right? Those road signs are going to be like highlighted in green lettering, and you're 102 that yeah, that you'll follow the road signs, right? And construction, or yeah, follow the road signs. Follow the road signs, and follow the signs, and so it's like, yeah, so there would be a sign that maybe way over here, maybe about a quarter of a mile or something like that, like way over here, going at southbound or going northeast or something like that. So it's like, yeah, so if I were to change, I'm like, yeah, if I were to change the size of this image right here, so that way people can kind of, yeah, I'm like, I don't really see no reason to do that, but the reason why I'm doing it is so that way we can if we can see a little bit more detail of the sketch right here. But I'm using this right here as an example right here of an image of a car and a truck, and then, like you're just moving around like that, so that way, like everybody say that you're just moving around like that. So that way you can show everybody what you drew right here and what you colored using Photoshop. But still, I'm using this right here. This right here was supposed to be like a picture right here of while you were driving, that the things that you saw while you were driving. And let's just say that, yeah, like while you were driving, that there would have been a few restaurants. There were a few restaurants on the side of the road, like yeah, while you were driving, that there was a restaurant. You probably saw several restaurants, right? You probably saw several of them, and yeah, maybe places to eat. I'm like, yeah, rest stops, and I'm like, yeah, rest stops, and rest stops, and other places where you can, yeah, motels, other buildings, places, buildings. I'm like, yeah, you may have saw other, yeah, a lot of farmland even, but still, that you probably saw a lot of places while you were driving, and yeah, a lot of those places for sure. A lot of those places would say that a few of those places. I'm like, how do you know if those places are open or if they're closed? And like, well, while you're driving, that would probably be Like, yeah, are they open, open or closed? So yeah, if you're going to be planning on any road trip for sure, you would probably be asking those questions as to where that, it's really hard to tell, who's open and who's closed. And a lot of times, like everybody say that, being a graphic artist for sure, being a graphic designer, that if you can go ahead and do some Photoshop to where it show your viewers of, places around town that are open and then a few places that are closed. And if you can maybe do some Photoshop work to where if you can actually show that to where to tell people that that the places that are open and the places that are closed, and like usually around 9 o'clock, like 9 in the morning or so, places start opening up, especially during the holidays. And so it's like, yeah, what sorts of a graphic work could you really show everybody here, just to show, drivers that, okay, yeah, we are open, yeah, we're open, or no, we're closed. And so like everybody else might say, if you're going to have a job doing something, you can maybe do maybe design work, showing, telling everybody, okay, yeah, the hotels or maybe the restaurants, the ones that are open, and maybe the ones that have a special or something like that, a special offer or special sale or something. And so really, that yeah, if you're going to be using this design right here for any purpose at all, it's like, yeah, while you're driving by, you can go and stop into this one gift shop or something. Like, yeah, while you're driving by, if you see us, yeah, we're located in a small town northeast. And so yeah, so while you're driving, you may be driving by maybe 4 different towns, right? While you're driving, you're driving, maybe going through maybe 3 or 4 different towns. Some are smaller towns and some are bigger towns. And that is why it seems like that, whenever you get on the roads, for sure that you're always want to know too that, while you're driving through this town, how come you didn't go stop and see a cousin, or how come you didn't go stop and maybe go pick up a gift or a souvenir or something like that, or something like yeah. So it's like so almost every road trip that you do plan, like even if it's in an RV, that you're going to be asking these questions, like, yeah, you're going to maybe be seeking a lot of those questions for sure. And I want to know too that yeah, with gas prices and everything, but still that but every time you think about that, and you're warned toward it, that yeah, with these photographs here, that especially during the bad weather, that yeah, while you were driving. But would any company maybe ask a graphic designer as to where could you go ahead and create some illustration designs just to tell our customers if we are open or if we're closed? And what do you think? What sorts of a graphic design do you think that you would be able to do for something like that? To where that could you possibly tell people that, okay, yeah, what places are open and which places are closed? And I can go ahead and yeah, make this a little bit bigger, but people might say that yeah, if you do wind up doing a work like that, for sure that maybe somebody's going to maybe ask you to where that would be really helpful if you could maybe tell the customers to go ahead and do graphic design for these businesses, to tell them that which ones that are open and which ones that are closed, and maybe the ones that are open, maybe only during the afternoon hours or something like that. People driving by that they would like to know what their business hours are. And so it's like, yeah, so if you were actually doing designs maybe for a website or something like that, and they would like to know if the places are open or closed. And while you're driving, for sure, while you're driving it, you just you won't know until you look it up. And you want to know too, okay, yeah, well, it's really hard to tell if places are open if the lights are not on. Most of the time, if the lights are on, if the building lights are on, or maybe if the street lights, the highway lights, the lights are on, that's usually that the best time to be able, that's really like one way that you'll be able to know if they're open or closed. And so anybody who's going to be traveling for the holidays are going to maybe say is toward that's maybe going to be the first question that they're going to wonder is to want to know, okay, yeah, the restaurants, the gift shops and the restaurants, and maybe even recreational centers. You want to know too that what places are open or closed, and most of the time, if you see cars parked there in the parking lot, you're able to tell that okay, yeah, they look like they're open because it looks like that they got a grand opening going on or something, and so whenever you check out these businesses for sure, anybody who's driving by, you see that advertised or something, and so it's like you want to know too that a lot of times whenever you're driving by places that you might see that okay, they look like they're open, and while you're driving by that location and you're 102, well, number one, you would have to find a way to pull off. You find the exit ramp just to be able to pull off the highway, so that way you can go in and find a parking spot, and so that way you can go into one of those shopping malls. Go into one of those restaurants. I'm sure most of us have had that experience, but it sure seems that way. That whenever you start writing down some ideas about, okay, you want to go for a road trip, right? You want to plan a road trip, and you're always thinking too that if you were to want to plan a road trip at any point in time soon, that it's like, what's the first thing that you think about? And the first thing that you think about, of course, is money, right? Well, money. You need money to do it, or so. But let's just say that if you need money to do it, but the second question is going to be about who's open and who's closed. Yeah, that's going to be the second question. It's like, who's open and who's closed? And that is why it seems like that every time I think about it, and people are always wondering toward it, that don't you think that it would maybe make more sense to have a graphic designer or some sort of digital artist to go ahead and do a design that tells your customers about, like an infographic or something like that shows your customers that, okay, are you open or are you closed? And so it's like, so that's going to maybe be the second question, like everybody else would say that, you would like to go over there to the movie theater. Go over there to the mall or the movie theater just to see it, but the first question you're going to maybe wonder to where if they're open. And so if you're going to be planning a road trip at any time soon, that's going to maybe be the first question is to where that do you really want to know if they're open or closed? And it's like what their hours are, and it's like what their business hours, and so like everybody anybody who has planned a road trip here recently is maybe going to be asking about that is toward it, we open at 9 a.m. Some places, like on the weekends or so, some places may open at 10 o'clock or so, but let's just say, from 9 to 3 or something like that. So like, let's just say that I'm like, and I know a lot of places might be open a little bit later, but like everybody else might say that so if you're going to be planning on any road trip for sure, that you would probably say is toward if you're going to be maybe creating, if you're going to be drawing a picture like something like this, people want to know too that could you give that information to somebody, like all they really want to know is if you're open or closed, and then if you are open, what are your hours, and could you really explain that, like on this advertisement right here, like do like a little ad right here to where we're open, or we accept that, and so while you're driving for sure, you may not know certain things, and that's why it seems like if you don't know. okay, the place don't even look open, and so that's I'm like, yeah. So especially if you have GPS in a car, that you might not know certain things, and that is why it seems like that for sure that you're warned toward it. If you're going to be planning on any sort of road trip, for sure that you're warned toward it. That you're able to see a lot of things, a lot of good sceneries and everything. But it's like yeah, like people might say, especially if you're tired from that long drive or something, and so yeah, so it's like yeah, you're tired enough to where you only take about maybe 3 photographs, and you look at those photographs, and you might zoom in real closely at some of those photographs, and you're warned toward it. Yeah, this right here, yeah, it really came out really out of focus right there. This right here, yeah, yeah, how many of us have thought about that toward while you were driving? That yeah, that this is what it looks like. I'm like, yeah, you don't really pay too much of attention to. You look through the rearview mirror like that, and 102 that you look at the traffic from behind, and 102, yeah, I know it. Like everybody say, you take a photograph of something like that, and 102 that yeah, you don't really pay attention to it. Maybe if it's too far away, you can't really tell. But whenever you look real closely at it, and okay, yeah, that looks like a truck right there, and that looks like a car coming up right behind you, and so it's like yeah, so it's like so if you were to be going on any sort of road trip, for sure, that you're warned to where that you just start thinking about things. You just start thinking about things. You're always warned to where that whenever you get there, for sure, as soon as you get there, you just start thinking about things. And you warn too that half the time you always warn too that whenever you do start thinking about things while you're driving, or maybe as soon as you get there, for sure, you might think that you don't really have. You may think that you have everything that you need, but it's like everybody say this, to where just to kind of make the long story short, is that yeah, as soon as we had the money to be able to plan on this road trip here, that's whenever we just decide to go ahead and make the road trip. We decide to go ahead and go for the drive, and while we were driving, making our deliveries, while we were delivering something, we were trying to deliver something, and while we were on that side of town, we decided to go ahead and stop by and visit with somebody. And so I'm sure we all have our stories, like people might say that that some people probably don't like it. Yeah, appointments, interviews and appointments. So let's just say that yeah, a lot of times that's usually what happens, and like everybody else might say that does that happen quite often to where that if you did not have an appointment that morning, but then you were heading while you were over there, like yeah, you've been meeting to make an appointment, or you had to reschedule that appointment, you had to cancel that appointment just because of these reasons, because you couldn't figure out where to find a place, and by the time you found a place, so I'm sure we all have our reasons, right? We all have our stories and our reasons about that, but at the same time, no, it's like that each time we think about that, and you're always thinking as to where that by the time you do visit, by the time you do finally go somewhere and visit, by the time you actually get there, that they might say is to where that if you didn't have an interview scheduled, or if you didn't have an appointment, then yeah, so if that person can still see you, and so that is why it seems like that what's the best way of how to fix that, really, and like everybody else might even say, is to where that number one, that yeah, that number one, a lot of those waiting rooms, for sure, if you're going to be visiting the doctors, or maybe if you're going to be going to one of these restaurants, though, that yeah, for how busy they are, and a lot of times it seems like it's all about the business, and for how busy places are, and like for yeah, business at your service, and that was something I mention on my resume, but I'll tell you one thing, everybody, that every time you do think about a road trip, for sure, you're going to be thinking about money, right? You think about money, but how often are we really going to be thinking about is toward it? Places are either open and closed, and knowing that if everything is there, everything is here. So how often are we really going to be thinking about that? Okay, yeah, everything is here. We got our we got our traveling, we got our luggage, and everything is here. And so whenever you do plan on a road trip, you may think that everything is here, but it's like people might even say too that wood companies maybe need a graphic designer just to be able to create like a type of logo, kind of like this right here, to where it would kind of give them an idea about, what do you think that you could use just by looking at this graphic right here, and just by looking at this image alone right here? What do you think that you could use just by looking at this right here? And that's going to kind of give you an idea about the things that you would like to plan ahead of time whenever it comes to road trips and everything. So it's like, so like everybody else might say that, is that usually a good spot for that? Like have it right over here on the left, and then right over here on the right that you would have like maybe a URL link or something like that you can share, and share with any of your visitors. And want to know too, if you're going to be planning on any sorts of road trip, for sure, that you go ahead and place an image right here. But really, I don't, like everybody else would say, that you don't really need to change the size of that image for any particular reason. But like everybody, especially if you have more than one image, if you have more than one image, you should just leave that size the way it is. And if you had other thumbnail images that you want to use, you could place them right here. But I just have one right now. I just have one, and then just had just some writing right here. But like everybody else may even say that that if you're going to be planning a road trip at any point, and let's just say that if you're going to be planning a road trip, what are the things that you really think about whenever you're going to be thinking about any sorts of road trip? And at 102, like everything is here. You got money, and so it's like, so that's why it seems like that, do you think that it would be very helpful just to have at least one or two images, like a graphic, like any source of advertisement, like what you see in these advertisements, right, in some of these designs, to where it, something about this size right here that would give your customers an idea about what is it that they need, and what is it that they could use just by using just one image right here containing containing graphical, containing info, like an infographic or something like that, like a design. And so like everybody say, that the first thing that you may think about for sure is that whenever I was taking this photograph right here, I was not thinking about all that other stuff right there. I was not thinking about I was not thinking about whenever I took the photograph, I was not thinking about adding any text. I was not thinking about putting any stickers, or I was not thinking about putting a few extra snacks in the trunk of the car or nothing. So the things that you just don't think about whenever you're working on something. And so it's like, so while you're working on something, that people may want to know too, that while you're working on something, that you may even want to know too, that do you think maybe making the image bigger or smaller is really going to give you an idea? You look real closely at the image, just like that, and you look real closely, and like anybody who's going to be traveling for sure are going to probably say that it's best to go ahead and look real closely at what the agenda is, right? Look at the plan, and the plan is that look real closely. The plan, look real closely. Look closely. Look real closely at what the agenda is. And so it's like everybody else might say that, yeah, so that's a, you look at the photographs and maybe like everybody say that, you were mainly using those photographs right there just to kind of piece together, just a little bit of what the agenda should be and anything that you would recommend, but still, that people might say that, that requires you to stretch it out just a little bit like that, and, really, there's really no purpose of why you would want to do that, but let's just say if you did, does that help just a little bit just to kind of get you an idea of what you would like to do coming up? For the summertime, maybe for the holidays, so you go ahead and just stretch the image around like that kind of gets you an idea of what you want to use. And people might say that, yeah, if you had maybe 5 images that you could use, but still, you go ahead and resize the images like that, if you just want to kind of get you an idea of what you want to use, and have an image right there, but this right here, yeah. So all this information right here, you use this information right here, and then you would place it like right down here. So if this right here was supposed to be like like a little advertisement right here or something like that, to where you tell your customers that in case of this situation happens. So yeah. So whenever you stretch whenever you stretch the image around like that, I know it. Why does that remind me so much of what's the worst thing that can happen in case of this happens? What's the worst thing that can happen whenever you do that? I know it. So if I place it like that, it looks like a placemat, right? Like a little door. It looks like a doormat or something like that. Whenever I stretch the image around like that, that's exactly what it looks like right there. Like if you were to place the image like that, what is that really supposed to tell anybody whenever you do that? Like, well, really, that what it looks like right there is that, like it looks just a little bit like, while you're driving, or I'm like, while the car's in park, while the truck's in park, this is what you could be doing, while the car's in park or something. But then if you move it like that, and it's supposed to look just a little bit different like that. So if you stretch it this direction like that, what is that really telling anybody here from there? Like, oh yeah, no, the car is not in park. It don't even look like it's in park. It looks like the car, looks like the car is going at least 30 mile an hour going down the highway or something like that. So yeah, whenever you do, the way we think about that, whenever you stretch the image around like that, and you're 102, that is that really telling you anything whenever you do that? Such as, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen if you do that? And so if you stretch it around like that, what is that really telling you? Like, well, is that telling you something? Yeah. So the things that you can do with just by looking at just one image alone, right? And it's like, yeah, well, that image right there looks like the way it's stretched around like that. It does, doesn't it? Maybe just a little bit. It looks like that picture was taken from whenever you were up there, on a tower or something. Maybe like you climb, a tree or something like that. That picture right there looks like it was taken from an angle or something like that. So the things that you can do with the designs, right? But it's like you're 102 that what do you think that images like that would be telling you 2 or maybe 5 or 13 different things? So it's like just by looking at this photograph, just by looking at this one sketch alone, the way I have it colored right here, but it's like whenever you do stretch that around just like that right there, what do you think? Why is it telling you maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different things whenever you do that? Whenever you plan ahead of time for a road trip, that you look at pictures, you look at photographs, and maybe if you get an idea of something that you can use, right? And you're 102, you're just experimenting around with them, number one. But everybody else might say that that if you're going to be planning a road trip for sure, you need money to do it. And I'm sure everybody else would probably say that, yeah, you need money to do it, number one, but still, that every time you think about that and want to know too that, yeah, that, you would, for sure, you would probably be saying that you need to know if the places are open. And, but still, that right there, yeah, stretch around, like, yeah, so it's like, if the cars are driving or if they're in park. And, but it's like, yeah, so it's like, you're looking at that right there, and I want to know too, just a little bit. But, anyway, just, yeah, just like stretching the image around like that, but like everybody else would say, is to where, so yeah, so if you're going to have an image like that right there, like, if it's going to be driving on a highway, or maybe if you're going to be driving around town, or maybe going downtown, or maybe going out of town for any reason at all, that, the things that you would like to know, but still, for places that are open and closed, and then if you have interviews and appointments, and so it's like if you know your routes very well, but it's like, yeah, so it's like follow the road signs and all that, but still. But each time I think about that, and want to know too that, yeah, like a speed limit is 70 miles per hour, but, so it's like, yeah, so if I were to, like right here on the left right here, if I were to write 70 miles per hour, a lot of these highways, by the way, a lot of the highways would say is that, yeah, is I think it's 50 miles per hour, ain't it? Something like that. RPM or something like that. Something like that. I mean, yeah, I can go ahead and change. Okay. Yeah, I know it. A colic or something like that. Something like that. I'm like, yeah. So it's like, so if I was an actual graphic designer, for sure, that looking at signs, kind of like that, to where you're like, if that right there is supposed to be like a speed limit, but I really don't know. Like, to me, I'm like, yeah, like everybody else might say that, if this right here is supposed to be an example for, like, maybe for a direction, like if you're going to be driving on the road, and maybe if you do see a sign like that right there, 70 RPM, that looks just a little bit like, anybody say that would maybe be maybe a good example for, like, maybe if it's a drive-in theater, or maybe a drive-in, a drive-in, your restaurant or something like that, but still. So every time you think about that, and you're 102, that, yeah, you follow the signs, and that there's construction going on in certain areas of the road, right? So every time you think about that, and you're always 102, that, if you're going to be planning on any sort of road trip, right, and need money to do it, but, everything is here, but it's like, don't you think, like everybody else would even say, that, that it would be really helpful if you would be able to do, like maybe some sort of graphic design based on that, telling your customers, your viewers about, yeah, that like an image like this, and like everybody says toward, yeah, whenever you took that photograph, you were looking through the rear view mirror, right? But then whenever you, like people might say that, that same photograph that you took whenever you were looking through the rear view mirror, and, now they're asking you to go ahead and create like some sort of a poster print, for, to tell your customers that, yeah, if you're open, and, for how does this work and how does that work, especially if you're traveling, and, yeah, so it's like, so it sure seems that way, that every time you do take about, whenever you do look at your photographs a lot of times, that you might say is to where, whenever you took the photograph, you were not really, you weren't really trying to guide anybody on how to do something, right? You were not trying to guide anybody on how to do something, but still, that whenever you took the photograph, for sure, whenever you did take the photograph, that what you were doing, I'm like, yeah, whenever you did take the photograph, but still, that got Photoshop right here, but whenever you did take the photograph, though, that or you're working a sketch, that you were mainly talking about is that the main objective, and it's like, yeah, trying to, like, yeah, like everybody say that, whenever you first start drawing, for sure, you want to go ahead and just draw a picture of a car and a truck right beside each other. I'm like, yeah, whenever I was drawing this, it was like, yeah, go ahead and paint a picture of a car right here, paint a picture of a truck. But whenever you take the photograph, you want to go ahead and take a photograph and try to get a good view of what's going on in that photograph. And so it's like, yeah, so it's like, so every time you think about that in 102, that that was not the original idea, that's not the original thought, but like everybody else would say, is toward it. Of course, there's going to be more work to do, for sure. There's more work to do. There's still going to be more work to do. Like everybody else might say that, your work is not like, anything that you're going to be working on, for sure. That your hard work, right? The work that you're working on, right? Your hard work. It's anything that you're working on that you might think that some of the work is done, but then some of it is not, and that is why it seems like that the question kind of goes by as toward what do you think about work, though? A lot of the work that still needs to be done, and maybe the work that you had to redo, and yeah, like everybody else would even say too that if you had to rework something, and also if you had to, it was a lot harder, a lot more work. It was a lot more. It was a lot more work than what you originally thought, that was going to be present during the time. So every time you do think about doing something like, and it should only take about 10 or 15 minutes just to be able to do it. But a lot of times, based on my experience, tell everybody too, that based on my experience, that it's like, what does that usually mean whenever you find a lot more work, and like, and not everybody's going to want to deal with it if there's a problem. Like whenever there's a problem, for sure, whenever there is a problem, when problems come up, problems, right? Most problems, though, that not everybody wants to deal with them. Whenever there's a problem, not everybody wants to deal with them. So it's like whenever you do talk to those experts, for sure, and a 102, that well, what is a good answer for that? Whenever it comes to problems, right? Whenever it comes to problems, is that what advice would you really give to anybody whenever it comes to solving problems? You find a lot more. And that's probably what I would say too. Whenever you look really closely at those problems, you find a lot more. And that's why it seems like everybody else would say, is to where, almost everybody else, they want to go ahead and go out and have their fun. They want to go to the amusement parks or somewhere like that, or go to the theme parks, or go on this vacation and all that. But still, it's like whenever you come up to a problem, a lot of times it's like you find a lot more. Find a lot more of what? Like, and you find a lot more problems. What sorts of problems? But so that is why it seems like that everybody else would even say that every time you do think about that in 102, that that whenever you think about your work, though, a lot more work, you find a lot more work than what you originally thought that you were going to find. Why do you think that those problems would come up whenever you're trying to plan a road trip? Whenever you're trying to do any sorts of road trip, right? If you're trying to do any sorts of road trip or something like that, and do any sorts of road trip, or maybe if you're trying to, so it's like, yeah, for rear view mirror, but still any sorts of road trip, and it's like I guess the best answer for that is to where that now we're here, and that's probably something I would think of too. Yeah, now we are here. So if you were to use it, like now we're here. Put put a kind of so yeah. Now we're here. So if I were to put a spacing right there, and like everybody say, we're here now. Yeah, I'm sure we've all been there, right? We've all been there before, to where any road trip where you go on that, well, we're here. What do you want to do? Since we're here now, we can go ahead and, okay, yeah, we can go and work on that since we're here. Yeah, since we're here, we can go ahead and work on that. And so it's like, so anybody would maybe say that, it would be really helpful if you can go ahead and work a design toward anybody who's traveling, for the weekends or maybe for the holidays, that you can go ahead and do like some source of, do any sorts of ads or magazine prints or something like that, for something like this, something like, kind of like this right here, to where it shows everybody that, you may have gotten the idea just by working on something, right? But it's like, whenever you stretch it around, just experiment around with it. Number one, just experiment around with it. But it's like, so if you were to actually say, now it's, now we're here, or something like that. So really, what does that mean if you were to say something like that? Yeah, now we are here, and we and who, who's we, and so if you were to actually break that down, now we're here, and so when we think about that, what does that really tell? What does that really tell you? What does that really tell us? Whenever you do that, so if we're talking about, if you were to actually use the same thing and maybe place it like on any source of image, right, and say, now we are here, and so it's like, so that's something that you really just don't see, and like anybody say, that if you're going to be planning ahead of time, that U102 is to where that people might say it is to where that one thing that you can maybe do just to kind of get ahead of schedule and maybe just to plan ahead of time is to where that you go ahead and one thing that you can do is to where that you go ahead and like maybe I don't know about maybe a text message or something like that, but do something like to where you go ahead and something like you use a big picture like this, something like this, but then you may put like on here on the top, something to maybe a few people can understand like that, somebody can understand what you're doing, and just put on here, now we are here, and so it's like so every time you think about that in your 102, that now we are here, is that really supposed to be a sentence, or is that right there is supposed to be a goal and or some source of achievement, right? So you 102 that so if you would actually be looking at an advertisement just like this right here, and you're warned toward, okay, I get that now, but how come I didn't think about that from before? And so it's like you're going to be asking that question as to where that you got that idea just by looking at a printed design, just by looking at a picture. You got that just by looking at a document or something that was pieced together just by using the skills of Photoshop and just by using the skills of PowerPoint or some program like that. So you got the idea just by looking at that, and so that is why it seems like everybody else would say that if you're going to be planning on any sort of road trip anytime soon, that it seems like that, would it be a good idea just to have, something such as to where like a PDF, a document, or some sort of document in writing to where that you have something that says, now we are here, and you include like maybe an image right down here at the bottom saying, showing, a few images and maybe the new products and maybe opening hours or maybe special offers and buys, things that you can get. And so yeah, so whenever we're talking about like publishing and advertising, especially, that you would see something kind of like that right there toward it, but still, miles per hour, you would see signs like that, but still, but a lot of times, like everybody else would say, is toward it, some of that stuff, you really don't know what all it means until you look real closely at it. Like, and yeah, you gotta look real closely at it just to be able to see and realize what it really is. And so it's like everybody else might say that, you know how that is. While you're driving, that there, you got a lot of distractions going on, especially if you're going to be going about 70 miles an hour, down the road, you don't really think about stuff, and that's why it seems like a lot of times is that that whenever you're going to be planning on any sort of road trip, for sure, that if you're going to be going about 70 miles an hour, going down the road, that some of the stuff that you just don't think about, and so you would maybe think as to where it would be really helpful to be able to look at some source of advertisement, to where you're able to recognize the signs, that you're able to recognize the symbol and the signs, and maybe the info, the infographics and other things that were placed onto a document. And so that is why it seems like that for almost every road trip that you do plan, that you're thinking is toward that, yeah, a lot of stuff that maybe not everybody is going to really understand, and that is why it seems like that that you go ahead and let's just say if you're going to be working, putting together a website, doing something kind of like this right here, and 102 is to, okay, well, I didn't know, well, okay, I didn't know that, or I didn't see that at first, and so what are, I guess the question kind of goes by is toward what are the best ways of what you can do to tell your customers and tell people looking at that something like that, and you tell them that for sure that you get the idea just by looking at your photographs, right? And that would probably be something I would probably tell anybody, that whenever you look at the typical stuff, a lot of stuff that we use every day, right? A lot of stuff that we use every day, that you look at your photographs, right? You look at your photographs, and just thinking about it is to where use your photographs as another way of how you want to call it, as a guide, to where you place that on the top right here on the top left, and then if you want to include, like, maybe if you want to on your from your smartphone, you can use something like that, to where that you take a photograph and then you include like maybe a message right here at the bottom right here, to where that, okay, if you would like to invite somebody to come and meet you, maybe somewhere, maybe at the mall or somewhere, anywhere you're going, and if you're going to be planning ahead of time, that like everybody says, to where it would really be helpful if you would include like just one photograph right here of an idea that you're thinking about, and then just have like a little description right here at the bottom. And but like, let's just say that if you were to be doing something like that, but then you include right here, now we are here, and so really, why like everybody else might even say that does that basically mean is toward that you actually have gotten this you were able to work that out where you can make your traveling arrangements a lot sooner than what you expected, or something like that? Or does that also mean is toward that you went by a different route or something like that? A lot of everybody else would say is toward that you went by a different route or something, but still, like, yeah, whenever you plan your road trip, for sure, if you know what I'm talking about, whenever you plan your road trip, for sure, that you don't know really when you're going to be there, you don't know what you're going to have, to give to somebody, and that is why maybe something such as maybe a design or an infographic or something toward it, just to plan ahead of time. You look really carefully at something kind of like this right here, just to kind of get yourself and trying to get an idea about, okay, if you're planning on any sort of road trip, for sure, what are the things that you would like to consider whenever you're going to be planning that road trip. And it's like, so yeah, maybe an idea about, okay, yeah, use this as a guide, and like everybody else would say, is toward it, picture in your mind about what possibly what the road trip could be about, and use that as your guide, and just kind of get an idea about, okay, yeah, you want to go ahead and get some ideas on the places where you want to go and all, but still, it's like, people might say is toward it, you put a lot of hard work into planning ahead of time, but still, there might be some things that will change, and there might be some things that will still be the same, right? And so that's why it seems like that, every time you think about that, and at 102 is toward it, you find a lot of this to be really helpful, even though that if there was a sign, just like something like this right here, if there was a sign, something like this right here, to where you would see an image right here on the left, and then you would see something such as, now we are here. And U102 is to where that you don't really know what that means until you look real closely at it, and so it's like, yeah. So whenever you do get on the roads, for sure that you're going to see a lot of signs. Several of these signs are going. Maybe one of them is going to say caution. One of them is going to say stop, and one of them is going to have like the object marker or something like that, and maybe yield signs and other traffic signs, and so it's like, yeah, so it's like a lot of those signs that you do see, and but it's like people might say is toward looking through a rear view mirror and drawing a sketch, and this sketch right here is going to look just a little bit like looking through a rear view mirror. And especially if you're going to be a passenger, right? If you're going to be a passenger, this is really maybe going to be one of the only things that you can really think about. If you remember anything from that road trip, for sure, what you really remember most of the time is looking through the windows and looking through the rearview mirror, and you're always wondering toward that a lot of things that you didn't quite understand during the time of the road trip, and so that is why it seems like everybody else would say is to where you go ahead and place one image just like this right here, and maybe if you put in place it right here, or maybe like on the side or somewhere like that. So it's like, yeah, so it's like our photographs, by the way, like everybody else would say, is to where our photographs has come a real big like everybody else would say, that we use our cameras almost every day, to the point to where that you pretty much need them. You take a photograph of something. You don't just take a photograph of something just because that you're trying to get a good view. You're trying to get a good angle of what you're trying to get, right? You take a photograph of something just because that that right there, yeah. I guess if you want to kind of look at it, maybe just a little bit of a backdrop, right, of something just to kind of give your viewers an idea of what you're talking about. And so it's like, yeah, so it's like you take a photograph of something, and you might think as to where that, yeah, this photograph right here looks just a little bit, but still, you'll still use it. But then right down here on the bottom, that you go ahead and say that you're going to be planning a road trip, and then you have money to do it, and then you have everything is here. But by the time you go on that road trip, and you might notice a couple of problems, and you find a lot more work than what you thought that you had, and a lot more issues than what you thought that you had, and that is why it seems like everybody else might say is to where does it really feel a little bit? Do you feel a little bit more comfortable to where you can actually jot down some ideas first? You just think about that, to where that you go ahead and write down some ideas about what's the worst thing that could happen in case of this happens, and write down on 4 or 5 pages of the things that you talked about, planning a road trip, and like anything for a summer vacation or something like that. But really that but I don't know if everybody here is just wondering that if you were to say, now we are here, and you're 102, that could mean a number of things, right? That could be a number of things. And if I were to maybe highlight that for sure, like, yeah, if you want to go ahead and but still, highlight that. But yeah, if I can go ahead and home right here. Okay. Oh, I'm just trying to bring up that menu, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't really have to highlight it, but yeah, go ahead. Okay, yeah, underline it or something. I don't really have to do that. But in case if anybody's wondering that, if you were to see any signs like this right here, when now we are here, what does that mean? And why do you think that you would really pay attention to that too much of the time? If you were to actually be planning any sort of road trip, right? You would go ahead and underline a lot of this right here. You would look at that very carefully. And every time you're going to be planning ahead of time, any sort of road trip, right? If you're going to be planning on any sort of road trip, yeah, money, everything is here. Yeah, we got time to do this, and so everything, almost everything that you talked about doing for this road trip in 102, that let's just say that if a lot of the things that you were doing, places where you're going, and let's just say that yeah, the places where you were going, that you had an appointment scheduled from earlier, but then you had to cancel it or you had to reschedule it for some other reason, and so that's why it seems like everybody else would say is to where that yeah, that so if you had an appointment that you had to reschedule, or maybe if it was anything such as related to an interview or something like that, if you were doing your visiting, and let's just say that the first thing that you said is that yeah, I'm on my way or something like that. Yeah, if you were to say something like yeah, I am on my way or something like that. So if you were to say something like that, then maybe yeah, if you were to say I am on my way, and maybe put like yeah, I can, if everybody's really going to know what you're talking about, and so yeah, if you were to actually text somebody something like that, do you think they would be really helpful to where you can go ahead and do like printed ads, where you can create signs and symbols of talking about something like that, and to the yeah, I'm on my way or something like that to bring a delivery or something. So not everybody's really going to know what all this is supposed to mean right here, and at least not at first. They're not really supposed to know what all it means, and maybe that's another reason why people might say that yeah, that we would need to have a designer, a graphic designer, so that way you can show our customers what this means, and what's the best solution of how to fix that, especially to our customers and people traveling on the roads, that you would receive a text message on your phone saying that this has been delivered or something like that. But now we are here or something like that. So it's like, yeah, so every time you think about that, and you're always thinking as to where yeah, either people don't know how that works, or they didn't really know anything about it during the time, and so that is why it seems like that when we speak about logos there, and so it's like, yeah, logos for highway traveling and logos, but every time you think about that, for sure, it's going to remind you of the photographs. It's not really going to remind you too much about, okay, yeah, that this reminds me a lot of that newspaper or something like that. A lot of times, that like everybody else would say, is to where, for sure, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here is going to remind you of a photograph or something like that, or maybe of a recent vacation that you went on or something like that. So it's like, yeah, so the exact same thing that you were explaining about here on these 4 pages is maybe the exact same thing that you can maybe explain to everybody here just by using 1 or 2 images, and just to kind of do maybe like an infographic or something that you would explain on a website, to where you're trying to tell your clients about something is to where that there's changes and maybe upgrades going on, you would include like in big letters right here to where now we are here or something like that, or changes coming soon or something like that. And I would maybe say something like, yeah, upgrades, yeah, upgrades coming soon or something like that. Yeah, upgrades, upgrades coming soon or something like that. And so it's like, yeah, so you may not have gotten a message right away, but it's like, so if you were to see something like this right here, and let's just say if it was maybe a distilled document, and 102, that this right here, if you were using this right here for like any sorts of business reason or so, and 102, that yeah, you'll do any travelers really find that information to be very helpful, and especially if they didn't see that on the sign or something like that while you're driving. And so yeah, you use the photographs and all, but still, now we are here and all that. So I include that image right there. But anyway, but just say for safe driving, everyone, and happy for safe driving for the holidays. But still, that knowing about for what's open and what's closed, and for 9 to 3 right here. And but still, but anyway, but talk about that typical safe driving, everybody. But talk about for the highway driving. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.